In this section of the series, you will learn how to use n8n in order to build a workflow that you saw the demo in the start of the series, and also teach it to the rest of the world on how to build n8n workflows. So let's start from the very first step. First, you need to show them the website. You need to go to this website called n8n.io. This is a website, the official website of n8n. Well, I think there's only one website, which is the official website of the n8n. And it's an open source project. You can go and check out the project. It's a very famous open source project with this concept called fair code. Well, fair code is also a terminology that is introduced to the world by the founder of n8n, Jan-Uwe Auze. This is the guy behind n8n. He's a solopreneur. He started this in Berlin in 2018-19, and he came up with this concept called fair code, which is the underlying principle for n8n as well, and Jan is one of the founders of this particular system, or this particular way of building software or open source software. What basically it says is that you cannot fork this or clone this, put it on the internet, and start charging money for the hosting of it. Basically, you cannot go and do this business model. But if you fork it and put it on your own server, or forking means basically like copying the code. If you copy the code and use this software on your own servers behind your servers, you don't have any legal problems. But if you start charging directly people a license fee like this is illegal. You'll face legal consequences from n8n directly. That's basically what fair code means. But this is a very, very strong open source project. If we talk about a few things, like there is like 137,000 GitHub stars. A very famous project called TypeScript. TypeScript is a programming language enhanced from JavaScript. That's a Microsoft project. Has 106,000 GitHub stars. And n8n has 137,000 GitHub stars. There are a lot of integrations possible in n8n. And if you see from the size of it, like there are 15,000 so-called commits. Commits is like a bunch of code that is injected into this system. And it is running for about 5-6 years, I would say. And it means like it has been baked really, really well. So you can see from June of 2019, at least we have a code here. I remember having a conversation with Jan, who started this, and he said like it was like one final dump in June of 2019. He started it a little bit earlier than that. So the code that you see here is an accumulation of 6-7 years of development. And most importantly, this is 1.1 million lines of code. I have counted it using a software, and it's really, really interesting code base. And if you come here, you see this so-called pull request. There are 13,000 of them. That means 13,000 times feature was built on the top of this. Every single pull request is kind of like a tiny piece of code that was reviewed, and then it went through a human evaluation, and then it went to the code base. So it's based on its size, it's really huge, it's really, really comprehensive. And so is the case with number of issues closed, 4,800 issues. Now, if we go back to n8n website, you can sign up for this. You can see an interface like this, where you see basically your so-called instances. You open an instance. You may see a different UI than this one. That's absolutely fine. It's because of different tiers of licenses. And then you see a list of all your automation that you have done before here. This menu is showing you a bunch of options where you can navigate back and forth between the other options or the other areas of the platform. One of the interesting thing about n8n is it's so much community driven. And this templates thing is a community thing. Like there are, if you go here, you will see 5,395 community templates. What is a template? This particular workflow that I have demoed in the start of this course can be downloaded as a JSON file here. You see JSON came again. I was talking about JSON before. And this particular JSON file is basically a template. And there are thousands of n8n experts out there in the world who have built something. For example, I want to build something for my Gmail inbox. You search for Gmail inbox. You can see that there are 8 templates here that is free. Some of them can charge money. For example, this guy built an n8n workflow and put it there for free for people to use. Daily Gmail inbox digest to Discord with GPT-4 and PDF conversation. So it's a specific use case that this particular person thought about. And you can interact with this. Like you can interact with this particular workflow. You can use it for free and so on. So this template feature of n8n or this community-driven feature is very interesting. You can create a new workflow from here. When you create a new workflow, you see this so-called canvas. In this editor mode, you can build your workflow. You can zoom in and zoom out. If you zoom out, you click on this thing, it brings it back to focus. In the execution mode, in a minute, you'll see in the next lecture probably that every single workflow executes something or it performs some tasks, and the log or the history of all your executions is listed down here. Evaluations is basically the test for your workflows. If you build a workflow, you want to make sure that this is running all the time correctly. This is basically your test. It's an advanced topic out of the scope of this particular series. You can name your workflows here. I'm gonna call it Simple AI Agent Workflow, or I'll just call it Simple Workflow. And once you have this piece of technology in place, then, a piece of workflow in place, then you have the first step, which is a trigger. When you click on this, then you see a menu in here which shows all the triggers that you can put in place. A trigger is basically a step towards executing this particular workflow. This can be a click. This can be on the basis of a chat. It can be on the basis of Google Sheets, a specific icon in front of it showing a trigger icon. Since we are in this first step, therefore we see these triggers. Let me just, for the matter of fact, put trigger manually. That means like when I click on this button, this workflow is triggered. Now I search for Google Sheets. Now you will not see those flash icons in front of it. Why? Because now I'm in a state in my workflow where I do not need a trigger. The trigger is already there. But here you can also see the triggers down there. That is like when a row is added in a Google Sheet, when a row is updated, and so on and so forth. All right, so now we have this particular simple use case here, which is click trigger. But if we keep an eye on what we are supposed to build, the trigger in here is a Google Sheet trigger. We will get there. We'll get to this particular workflow, which we will change the trigger in this format. But in order to give you a very basic form of n8n, like a very basic introduction to n8n, I'd like to take a small detour and explain a few things in here, and then we go back to the actual workflow that we are going to build for the rest of the this section of the course. So when you add a trigger, you'll see that these borders are different. And also there is this little flash icon that indicates that this is a trigger. And when you open a trigger, double click on that one so-called node. So this is called a node. And when you double click a node, you basically see the details of that node or the settings of that node. And once you start building these nodes or these workflows, then you will discover something. For example, I'm going to add an AI agent node in here. The AI agent node cannot be triggered with a click, therefore it added this other trigger called chat. So I don't need that click anymore. I'm going to put the chat trigger. You see the same concept. The corners of this is different. The corners of this one is different. Especially this AI agent node is a very specific kind of a node. It's a spatial node in n8n. So I want to make a point about the pattern of windows. So what I'm going to do is go to this other workflow and start explaining that pattern of windows in here. So one thing you can notice here is that this corner and this corner and this corner is different. That indicates the trigger node. Another thing that you notice is double click this. You'll see that this has a setting and an output, but if you double click this, you will see that it has an input, some settings in here, like this entire thing is all the settings box, and then this output. And as I said earlier, JSON is everywhere. You can see this JSON, especially if you're going in this direction. So therefore it's more good to choose TypeScript or JavaScript for your AI applications as compared to Python. Now, the same pattern happens everywhere. If I go here, input, settings, output. If I go here, same thing, input, process, output, or settings, output. Now there's one small little thing, like for example here, the output of this particular node, becomes the input of the other node. So here, you can see here there were 8 items coming as an output of this particular node. And if I go in this node, you will see that 8 items became the input of this node. So you keep that thing in mind, that always the output of one node becomes the input of the other node. All right, so now let's go back to our initial setup here. We studied in the very first lectures that an AI agent has these 3 basic components: intelligence, memory, and tools that it can execute on based on our intentions or desires to do things on those tools. Now, the chat model in our case can be OpenAI. If you type here OpenAI, you can select OpenAI from here. You can choose different models. You need to get an OpenAI API key. You can paste it here. One small tip I would like to give you as a workshop organizer is that if you put API keys on a Google Docs and then put that Google Docs URL, public URL, on a QR code shared with the room, it's a better idea than letting people go and find themselves an API key, because this is a big distraction. So if they copy paste that API key here, they should see a green check mark, and then they should be able to see all the possible nodes that they can pick from here. All right, so we got ourselves a simple AI agent in here. Now if I run this and I type hi, you can see that there is a message coming back. It means that I integrated ChatGPT with my workflow. That's nice. Now if I save this and refresh the page, and I ask something like, hi, my name is Amal, you see that it greets me back with my name in here, but it won't remember something about me. If I say, what is my name? It will say, I don't have access to personal information. But just one message before, we said, what is my name? The reason is because of this architecture that this entire system runs, are all of these moving pieces of puzzle work. Now it's, if you see the execution, every single time that one of these workflows run, they create their own little context window. So in here, probably this is the message where I said, yeah, my name is Emil. And this is the second time when I executed this workflow, when I said, what is my name? So you see in here, the chat S3 is only that one thing, that what's my name? I don't have any way to tell ChatGPT that, hey, remember this thing. That's when the memory comes in place. So if I click on this plus button and I click on simple memory, I can add a memory to this by giving like, hey, remember the past 5 conversations that we have, or past 50 conversations that we have. 5 is enough for now. And now if I do the same thing, I'm going to save. Please be careful to save your workflows all the time. n8n do not automatically save it. It's kind of a psychology behind it. They can add this feature, but they don't put it because they don't want to automatically save a broken workflow. They want you to save it. They want you to click on the button, or they want you to press Command S or Control S on your keyboard. So make sure that you always save it, and make sure that you always download it in JSON file if you want to take a backup. All right, so if I refresh the page and do the same thing again here, my name is Emil, enter, it executes, and I do this thing, what is my name? And it tells me now back, your name is Emil. So now we have added a simple memory to this AI agent. Now, the last bit of this is to add a tool, and then we are done with basics of n8n, and then we will move on to the next steps. When you add a tool, you can imagine one of the 500 integrations that comes in n8n is your basic arsenal of tools. To make things simple, I'll just add Gmail as a tool. You can authenticate your Gmail like this, super simple. And then you should have it here. I would like to create a draft. And I would like the LLM, the ChatGPT, to pick the subject automatically and the message automatically. And also, I want it to be an HTML email. So now, literally by doing that much, I have created a tool that allows me to generate emails in my draft folder. So I'm going to open my draft folder in this other window and be ready for this draft to be saved, so I can show you a few important traits there. So I'm going to bring this here. So we're going to keep an eye on this folder using this AI agent. So I'm going to use my dictation tool. Can you please compose a draft email to John Doe and mention that I'll be 20 minutes late to my meeting? Sorry about that. So since this AI agent knows my intent, it will execute this intent, and it also will create a draft email. And now if I refresh my draft folder, you'll see that it created an email, putting the subject in the right place, the intent and everything. But this is an email that is not nicely formatted. It got the John Doe and everything. Let's do that. So if I double click on this AI agent, I can click on options and then add a system message. Basically, this is a system prompt. I can say that you are a helpful assistant. Please generate my emails in HTML format so it looks nice. Sign off my emails with this email signature. sincerely, Emil Sire, one line empty, and then emilsire.com. If I do this, and there is a small feature in this that, like, if you mouse over here, there's this tiny little icon that allows you to repost the same message, so you don't have to kind of like type again and again. I'm going to click that one more time, this time with that system message or this prompt that I have added. It executes, and now if I go here, I should see one new, and if I open it, you can see it's now tidy, and also the signature is done correctly. And you can have more than one tool. You can imagine that having like a Google Calendar. I'm not going to go through all the details here, but because we're going to do this anyways throughout the workshop, and so on and so forth. You can have multiple tools. And once the AI agent is done with its work, then you can add more steps here. For example, you want to check something. You can use an F, and so on and so forth. And keep in mind that always the execution goes from left to right when it comes to an n8n workflow. So with that, we're done with n8n basics. Let's go to the next lecture.